Alright, for step 2, you're going to need to clean your primer pockets. So what this guy does is it cleans your pockets. Now 9mm 308, you'll use the small side, 45 cal, and bigger cartridges you'll use the big side. It's pretty no-brainer. Try to use the big side on it, won't fit in. Use the right side, a couple twists, hit it out, some junk falls out. I'll try to show you a close view of what a pocket looks like. See how dirty that is in there? You can see the hole, but it's filthy. But a couple, just 1, 2 twists like that. Then we look back in that hole, and now if you can kind of see, you can see the brass in there instead of the dirty pocket. Now, not everyone will take the time to go ahead and clean all the primer pockets. And if you don't, which I have in the past, gone every now and then, not done this. I just saw a whole bunch of crud fall out of that one. And you can throw a new primer into that spot. However, you're a little bit better fit, a little bit more accurate to do that extra little step. Albeit in bulk loading, that can be overlooked, but it's a matter of preference, I suppose. So I've got my 5 resized, deprimed, cleaned pocket cartridges. Now I take a tool like this. The new ones from Lee are really sharp because they make them square instead of round, and you might be thinking, well, why is that better? I'll tell you why. Every manufacturer of primers makes them in these nice little trays. This so happens to be the one I'm currently using, the Winchester primers, the small pistol for standard pistol loads. You're going to make sure you use the right primer for the right cartridge. 9mm would use a small pistol primer. But they get these nice neat trays. I'll show you what they look like. They got these little primers in there, which we're going to put in the back, in the box. Or we're going to take it out of the box and put it in the primer hole that we just cleaned. However, these nice square boxes don't line up so great. In fact, if you turn it upside down and you flip it, you're going to lose a couple primers on each of the 4 corners. So what I do, this is the trick I do, is I slide it over so I have 50 primers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows, and that would be just the right width for me to turn upside down. I'm doing a totally mirrored image backwards now, and then I flip it over, which would really look like me turning it upside down here and flipping it over this way. Anyway, I insert those half of the primers in there, put in the first 50, then I load the other half so not to make a mess. The new primer loaders from Lee actually are square, same size as that, so you can hold it upside down, you put it right there, put your primers in, flip it, and then put the lid on. I don't have one of those. If you do, great. Alright, so I've opened my tray, and like I just told you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There they are. Line up my tray. Every now and then you'll drop one. Life goes on. Turn it inside out. There we go. Oh, look at that. And what I like about the Winchester primers, I also use CCI, but what I like about the Winchester ones is that nice ruby red primer there. Easy to tell that they're all facing the right way. Take my lid there. Go ahead and attach it. They should all stay face up. However, it's always good to check before you load it in there to make sure it's correct. Because if you don't, do I have a bad one over here? I got rid of it. If you can load these primers in backwards, and then your SOL on that cartridge, because you cannot use the same priming tool and get that out, because that would cause it to explode. So you don't want to do that. Alright, so now I've got the primers right there. I've got a clean, resized piece of brass. Turn it over, rock it, peek in there. Whoop, see, look at this one here. Good example. This one's sideways, so we try to load that primer sideways. Don't want that, so I'm just going to hit it down nice and flat. See my ruby red? Always be wearing safety glasses when you do this, because when you push the primer in, I've now put force on the primer to get it to inject into its hole. Now I've loaded a couple thousands of rounds, and I've never had one go off on me yet, but that's the key way to say it. Not yet. There's a possibility, as there's always a possibility when working explosives, this could go off, and you don't want it to go off like such, facing your face. That's not good. So you do it in a safe direction away from you, and you also have safety glasses if it were to shoot any debris or junk out. Anyway, what you should be seeing, I'll put this down very carefully. Let's make sure my primer's not going backwards. What you what you should see is your nice flush new primer in there. And when you feel it, run your finger over the top. It should feel flush or go inwards a little bit by the primer. You don't want to have that primer bulging out. Then it gets snagged, it hits something else. You want it nice and smooth. So I always like to run my finger over it. That also allows me another check to make sure I didn't accidentally put this primer in backwards. Let's say I didn't do it all the way, and it's not all the way in. Then you could make sure there's no other primer right there, fight it back in, and then safe direction, push it a little bit harder, and you can push it the rest of the way in. So it's not a lost cause. You just need to make sure it's flush. Let's do 4 more. Okay. There we go. And another good one, nice and smooth. I'm looking in the hole there to make sure it's facing the right way. Nice and smooth. 3, 4. And like I said, if you didn't clean the primer pocket hole, you could still load them in there. It just won't be as easy. There they are, all nice and smooth. Alright, so there's 5. No need to do more at this point. However, actually, you know what? Let me just knock one out of here. I got 1 primer I took out. I'll show you how you can use the press the load if you so chose. After you deprimed your brass and it comes down, this piece I put in there, you can actually put the primer face up in there. So after you deprime, you could pull it down with an empty piece of brass. Oh, that one hasn't been cleaned. Let me clean that real quick. Oh, there's my tool. Actually, I won't. I'll leave it filthy. Slide it in there, and when it comes down all the way, I seat the primer into the cartridge. I don't do that because I clean my primer pockets, so I take them off anyway, and also I think it's much quicker, for me, exponentially quicker to use the loading tool as opposed to do it on the press. However, if I start loading rifle brass, then maybe I'll just do it all right here, clean the pocket, put it back in and size it, or load the primer in the pocket. That's what I do for now. Anyway, that's step 2. So you've deprimed, resized. Step 2, you put a new primer in. Now what you need to do, is load your smokeless gunpowder, smokeless powder in there, and resize the top of the brass. The brass is nice and smooth now, but to put the bullet in of the same size, it's going to get stuck. Kind of like if you took one drinking glass and you try to put in another one of the same size, it gets stuck. However, if you open up the mouth of this cartridge so it's a little wider, the bullet can slide in there, and then you'll close it off later. But the next step, step 3, will be opening up the top and inserting the powder. So let's do that.